What the hell is happening in Brazil is what all Brazilians are asking themselves ever since the 1500s, when the first Portuguese found our territory and we became a country. Until now, it's what we ask ourselves. What the hell is happening to Brazil? Allow me to try to explain. I'm afraid we may have passed the point of no return. I know you already got your North Korea, Russia, China, Venezuela, Rwanda, Nicaragua, Congo. Please update your dictatorship list. Now you can add Brazil, and I'll tell you why. So this is what happened in the last couple of weeks. Trump announced 50% tariffs on Brazil. So far, no surprises, right? He's been doing that with just about every country in the world. But along with the tariffs, he released a letter. And this letter talked about how worried he was with a court case against former President Bolsonaro and, political motivations behind that court case. And then the very next day, in response to this letter, to show Trump that there was no political motivation behind the court case against Bolsonaro, the regime ordered his arrest. So let me repeat. The Supreme Court ordered the house arrest of a former president. He now has an ankle monitor, and he's banned from social media and also from giving interviews and standing near any embassies or talking to his son, who's exiled in the US. And he's being accused of a coup that never happened. But anyway, unfortunately, he's the only candidate that is capable of defeating Lula, our current president, in an election. So, he's now banned from running, and all Brazilians are very worried right now, or should be, okay? Or should be. Not that our elections are real anyway. That's a topic for another video. Anyway, after that, Trump responded by issuing a visa ban for several Brazilian Supreme Court justices and other politicians involved in the case, rightfully so. So thank you, Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Well done. A Cuban, by the way. Go tell a Cuban that socialism is good. Just try. You know what other country got US visa bans for Supreme Court judges? Venezuela. In 2017, when their Supreme Court shut down Congress. That's where we're heading, okay? I guess we're already there, to be honest. Anyway, buckle up, because I have more context for you. But first, hi, my name is Caroline. The left destroyed my country, so now I make videos out of spite. Subscribe. Okay, so this is exactly why you should never, ever even consider voting for a communist. Who is Lula? Lula is our current president. He was a factory worker turned union leader back in the 70s or 80s. I don't know. He's old. And he's also a communist. And I mean that literally. He had to tone down his speech before being elected for the first time in 2002 because he was hardcore revolutionary, like abolish all private property, fuck the elections, they're not important, jail the capitalists sort of thing. I mean, he ran for office several times and never won. And so they realized, oh, Lula, you have to tone down your speech a little bit because I think people are worried. And he did that. And he managed to get elected. Not only once, but 2 times. So he was in power from 2003 to 2011. And then he managed to elect a successor, Dilma Rousseff, who's dumber than Kamala Harris, by the way. Anyway, check out these videos.
Acredito nisso, trabalho para isso. Acho difícil, veja, eu sou tão pessimista que eu acho difícil que mesmo que a gente fizesse a revolução hoje nesse país, depusesse o governo, A gente, para implantar esse socialismo, levaria quantos 30, 40, 50 anos para implantar num país de tantas coisas como o Brasil. Por isso, ninguém precisa ter tanto medo que não vai acontecer tão imediatamente. Tá? Nós precisamos plantar agora para colher daqui a alguns anos. É nisso que eu aposto e é para isso que eu trabalho.
98. E, portanto, não tinha que ficar preocupado com disputar a eleição. Tinha que se pensar em organizar a sociedade. Dali 20 ou 30 anos, a gente iria ter 30% da sociedade já socialista, e aí sim a gente poderia disputar o poder e ganhar. Mas eu não vou viver mais 30 anos. E eu quero chegar ao poder logo.
He admittedly lied about being a moderate to get in power and slowly take over all institutions with his wicked ideas to turn Brazil into a socialist hell within 30 to 40 years, which is exactly what's happening now, 22 years after he was first elected. Isn't it? Like Maya Angelou says, when they tell you what they are, you better believe them. Anyway, toning down his speech worked. He was elected in 2002, got into office in 2003 until 2011, managed to elect the first female president and also the dumbest one. Some people think he did a good job. Others think he was just lucky and surfed on a commodity wave in the macro scenario. And also he got a pretty good legacy from our former president, Fernando Henrique Cardoso, who is basically a national hero who saved Brazil from drowning in hyperinflation in the 90s. But good or bad, one thing nobody can deny, corruption scandals when he was in power were the norm. I'm talking massive corruption, okay? So naturally, he was caught and convicted for money laundering and passive corruption, active corruption. He was basically the big chief of the whole scheme. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison, was able to defend himself, he was able to appeal, and 2 other judges sentenced him all the same. So he was judged in 3 instances, and all the judges found him guilty. And he was arrested in 2018. For the first time in 500 years of Brazilian history, we were seeing corrupt politicians being arrested. It was an amazing time to be alive. Except it didn't last, because as soon as investigations led to certain Supreme Court judges, they managed to stop everything. And all convicted criminals are now being released and discharged one by one. Lula was also conveniently released in 2019, just a little over a year after first being arrested, and just in time to run for office against Bolsonaro in 2022 when he tried for re-election. And I repeat, who made that happen? Who released a convicted, corrupt communist? The Supreme Court. How did Brazil's Supreme Court became so powerful and untouchable? You see, they were always this wicked. At one point in time, they really just were there to guard the Constitution. But its authority grew slowly and incrementally, ruling by ruling, silence by silence. The turning point came in 2019 when Justice Alexandre de Moraes launched the so-called fake news inquiry. Without a prosecutor's request in a clearly defined crime, the court became its own accuser, investigator, victim, and judge. For the lawyers out there, in what democratic system does a single judge launches an investigation in which he acts as an accuser, an investigator, a judge, and the victim, where the targets are not told what crimes they're being investigated for? And the case files remain secret, even from the defense. Do you know any democracies where this can happen? I don't. And no one stopped this court. Congress didn't intervene. The Senate, who is constitutionally the one who can stop the court, didn't do anything. Each unchecked overreach just emboldened the court more. Now they censor speech, shut down media outlets, block social media platforms, order entire accounts to be shut down, often from independent journalists whose livelihoods depend on it. Orders arrest, not for actual crimes like murder and armed robbery, but for anti-democratic discourse, which can mean anything from a tweet to a live stream. Anything except real crimes, like murder and armed robbery. It's about opinions, about what you say, about what you question. Meanwhile, real criminals like drug traffickers, gang leaders, and political allies caught in corruption scandals, like stealing from old people on disability pension, they just walk free. And when someone powerful is actually prosecuted, odds are their lawyer is married to a Supreme Court justice or related to one, and then they walk free too, because that's how the system works now. So who's on this court anyway? Justices are appointed by the president and approved by the Senate, and they stay in this court until the age 75. 9 out of the 11 justices were appointed by Lula's Workers' Party. One is Lula's former defense attorney, by the way, Cristiano Zanin. Yeah, he had the audacity. Another is a longtime party insider and friend, Flávio Dino, this guy that you're seeing on the screen. Yeah, by the way, an influencer had his arrest ordered for calling him fat. Yeah, this guy, fat. You got Dias Toffoli, a former Workers' Party lawyer. Then you got Luis Roberto Barroso, which was once a respected legal scholar, but now openly defends controlling all digital environment. He literally said that the court beat Bolsonaro in the last election. The court beat a legitimate candidate. A court that is supposed to defend the Constitution and stay away from politics. Gilmar Mendes, this guy, he's the actual devil. And then there's Alexandre de Moraes, the man who blocked Twitter for over a month last year, threatened to seize SpaceX assets as if it was the same company. And then he threatened to fine ordinary people who used VPN to access Twitter. And that's just some of the things he's been doing. He also arrested a bunch of old ladies and moms who were protesting when Bolsonaro lost the elections. Protesting. These ladies are arrested since 2022. I don't know, last time I checked, dictatorships are the ones that don't allow protesting. Anyways, Moraes, ironically, wasn't appointed by the Workers' Party, but he didn't exactly walk through the front door either. He was nominated in 2017 by Michel Temer. He was the vice president of Dilma Rousseff, Lula's successor, who was impeached for fiscal mismanagement. So Michel Temer was in power for the rest of her mandate, and at the time, a Supreme Court Justice, Teori Zavascki, died in a plane crash. Tragically, in a suspiciously convenient plane crash. And I say that because Teori Zavascki was the judge overseeing the corruption scandals that I was talking about before in the Supreme Court. The Operation Car Wash is what they call the investigation that led to all that corruption. Anyway, this judge died in this tragic accident. At the same time, Michel Temer, the president then, was facing a bizarre personal scandal. His wife phone apparently was hacked and a hacker was blackmailing her. So at the time, Alexandre de Moraes was the justice minister, and he was apparently good at dealing with gangs, and he found the hacker and arrested him. And then I think in return, Michel Temer appointed him to be a Supreme Court judge. The great Brazilian jurist Rui Barbosa once said, who is one of the founding fathers of our republic, he once said, "The worst dictatorship is that of the judiciary. Against it, there's no one to appeal to." As a legal scholar, former senator, and constitutionalist, Rui Barbosa understood better than anyone that when judges abandon impartiality and concentrate power, the rule of law collapses from within. Unlike military regimes where resistance is clear and visible, judicial authoritarianism hides behind robes and legalese, making it even more dangerous. His warnings echo louder than ever now in Brazil, as we witness unelected judges wield unchecked power with no democratic accountability. You think a dictatorship needs tanks in the streets to shut down Congress? Think again. All you really need is a Supreme Court that acts like Congress. It started like that in Venezuela, and in Brazil, that's exactly where we are now. A court that creates law, rewrites them, and erases the ones they don't like. Meanwhile, the actual elected officials are, the people we voted for, are sidelined or outright persecuted. Some of them are even being prosecuted and arrested, by the way, for things they say in Congress or online, like Marcel Van Hatten, Carla Zambelli, Daniel Silveira, targeted for political speech either in Congress or online. Not ironically, they are all opposition to Lula's government. Article 53 of our Constitution is crystal clear. Members of Congress are immune from prosecution for any opinion, word, or vote in the exercise of their mandate. So that protection is not optional, okay? But the court acts like, it doesn't apply to their enemies. So here's what's happening. Congress rejected a bill multiple times that would have made social media platforms responsible for what users post, which is insane. It's like making Ford responsible for someone driving a Ford that runs over somebody else. Anyways, voters massively rejected this attempt to censor discourse, and the Congress rejected the bill. But then the Supreme Court stepped in and enforced the bill anyway. Legislation pretending to be a court decision. Now, any judge in Brazil can order a post taken down or shut down an entire account because they feel like it. No legal basis, no accountability, no route to appeal. Congress also vetoed an increase in the IOF tax, which is a tax that hits working people the hardest. Supreme Court turned around and said their veto was invalid. They didn't give a constitutional argument valid. They just decided to increase the freaking tax, like Lula told them to. Non-ironically, this is a percentage you get taxed when you buy foreign currency. Is anybody trying to stop Brazilians from escaping elsewhere? I think they are. So let that sink in. The Brazilian Supreme Court is writing laws, setting tax policy, censoring speech, arresting the opposition, acting as Lula government legal department, all the while claiming they are defending democracy. It's a joke. Who needs a military coup when you have 11 men in a robe doing the job quietly? So what about Bolsonaro? Bolsonaro, our former president, he wasn't perfect, okay? I'm the first one to admit. He's a career politician who's never had a real job. He used to be in the military, but he was suspended for misconduct and insubordination. I think that tells you a lot. He's been in Congress ever since I was born. He once voted against the Plano Real, which is the most important economic reform in Brazil's history, is the one that ended hyperinflation in the early 90s. So he's not the sharpest. He's not exactly a man of unwavering principles. But in 2018, when he ran for office the first time, they literally tried to kill him. He was stabbed in the middle of a campaign event and nearly died. And despite the press, the establishment, the entire political class hating him, he was elected. His government wasn't perfect either, but crime went down. He delivered a fiscal surplus in the middle of the pandemic. And most importantly, he stood up to the system. And now he's banned from running. His allies are being arrested one by one. And every viable conservative is being taken out of the game. But let's be honest, we all saw this coming. A house arrest for Bolsonaro was just a matter of time, but it's still surreal. Not just because Moraes ordered it, but because no one in Brazil is doing anything. And by no one, I mean the Senate. Constitutionally, they have the power to hold the court accountable, and they're not doing it. Meanwhile, it's not Brazil's institutions that are pushing back. Apparently, it's Trump. Trump's team, Marco Rubio, Eduardo Bolsonaro, exiled congressman, journalist Paulo Figueiredo, and others who are exiled or were living in the United States and have a relationship with Trump's government. They are the ones doing something, lobbying for sanctions, banning visas, and possibly there are reports the American Magnitsky law may be applied to some of the justices. We're waiting. It's not much, but it's something. It's a start. Look, Bolsonaro is not the hero we all wanted. Viva la libertad, carajo! Viva la libertad, carajo! But he's the hero we have. Unlike Lula, he didn't steal public money. He didn't run a $1 billion corruption scandal. And he's not cozying up to tyrants while jailing dissent. The charge against him, attempting a coup, based on what? Group chats? Hypotheticals? This isn't just about Bolsonaro. But quite frankly, if the establishment, if the press, if mainstream media, if millionaire celebrities and intellectuals are telling me not to vote for someone, I want to vote for that person even more. This is how democracy dies slowly, with our inaction, our resignation. No takes, no guns necessary, Just 11 judges who respond to no one, and a communist who took over all institutions. So let that be a warning, okay? The story is still unfolding. There's more to come. But for me, this is my origin story as a Brazilian. This is why I'm a libertarian. Because in Brazil, you can't trust the state. And you sure as hell can't trust the people running it. That's it. Thanks for watching. Hit like if you liked this video. Comment down below your thoughts. Consider subscribing. And for the Brazilians listening, I'm sorry, but take to the streets, protest, disobey. And if you're not Brazilian, I hope I could clarify what's going on there. The next time you see the Washington Post saying Lula is a democratic leader, I just ask, please do me a favor. Just wipe your ass with it, okay? Okay, see you in the next one. Bye.